Hello my friends, Stephanie here, and I'm back with more movie chatter. And as promised, what I have for you today are my top 10 horror slash thriller films that I think have really good endings. And it could be something that happens towards the end of the third act, or it could be just like the actual final scene. It kind of varies a little bit, but anyway, whatever happens towards the end of the third act will change how you see the movie on subsequent watches. So that's the criteria. Now, I tried to keep the kind of bigger films. I think maybe one got in here. I tried to keep it more towards films that are maybe less talked about, maybe underrated a little bit. And I do have some honorable mentions that are a little more popular, and I just put them in here because I just feel like I had to mention them. And my first honorable mention, I put it in here because I think some people consider it horror, some people consider it like a crime thriller. I consider it a hybrid, but it is Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman in Seven. I mean, how could I not have this on my list? Look at that slipcover. This is one of those Walmart slipcovers. There it is. What's in the box? One of the most iconic ending lines ever. I mean, what an amazing ending. This movie is an awesome movie. I think it gets an 8.9 out of 10 on IMDb, but the ending out in the desert, it's a gut punch. And if you haven't seen Seven, what are you doing? Get it, watch it today. It is awesome. Seven, I could watch it any day, anytime, anywhere. Awesome movie with an amazing, amazing ending. And this one, I put it as an honorable mention because it's one of the obvious ones. It's one of the big ones, one of the big franchises, and it is the original Friday the 13th. Who doesn't remember the first time we saw the killer reveal in part one and that iconic ending on the lake? I mean, there's just so much that goes on towards the end of that third act, and I remember the first time I saw it, it just blew me away, and it's still, not that it surprises me, but it's still like, ugh. But yeah, Friday the 13th, the first part, it's a good one. Had to be on my list somewhere. And this one is a classic. I would be totally remiss if I didn't have it on here somewhere. It's Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. And who doesn't remember that turn of events, the end of the third act, when we find out what Norman Bates has actually been up to. So, I mean, I'm assuming that everybody who watches this has seen Psycho or at least knows the story of Psycho, but it had to be on my list somewhere. And it's just such a classic film and so good and so well done. And actually, I recently watched Psycho 2 again. I had seen it before, but I watched it with a friend, and that's a really good follow-up. If you haven't seen Psycho 2, I highly recommend it. It's a good one. And this last one, this could have been in my top 10. I was going back and forth between this one and another one. It could have very easily been in my top 10. And it's a movie that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. It's called Housebound. And it's kind of a dark comedy horror film, and in my opinion, you have to do comedy right if you're going to mix it with horror. And this one does it really, really well. We have a young lady here. She has put on house arrest for numerous things that she's done. And she has to go live in her childhood home with her parents. And her mother are convinced that the house is haunted. I mean, look at this. Look at the faces in the front cover. It's just too much. And then up here you can see the house. The house is so creepy. This is such a creepy, atmospheric movie. And you start to think that the house may be haunted. There's things going on. There's sounds. There's different things that happen. I don't want to get into too much. But the end of this movie was such a surprise, and I didn't see it coming, and I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen Housebound, pick it up, give it a rent. I mean, I'm sure you can find it on Vudu or even on YouTube, whatever. But yeah, definitely check out Housebound. It's really one of those, I think it's just really underrated because I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. So I'm just going to get into my top 10, no specific order. I'm just going to get right into it. This first one is a German film. It is in German with English subtitles. It is called Goodnight Mommy. And we have our twins here. They are creepy little kids. This is a creepy kids movie. So they're 9-year-old twins. Their mom has recently gone in for plastic surgery. I forget if she had an accident or if she just went for plastic surgery. And here she is. You see her on the back all wrapped up. And the boys, who are on the front here, little creepsters, they don't think it's their mother because she's acting weird. She's a little cranky. She's a little short with them. They say that, our mother would never do this. She wouldn't act like this, and they want her to take the bandages off. She's trying to convince them that it's her. And I'm just going to kind of leave you with that because something happens at the end of the film that kind of explains it. It actually explains everything that's gone on. And I definitely saw the film in a different light when I rewatched it. But really, really good. It might feel like the pacing is a little weird, but there's a reason for it. So just Good Night Mommy, give it a look. I highly recommend it. It's a good one. I forget who recommended it to me, but whoever it was, it may have been someone on the channel, but thank you, whoever recommended it to me. And this first one, this is one of the bigger franchises. It's not huge. It's big enough. It's popular, but I will never forget the first time I saw this first film in a theater, and when a certain thing happens at the end of the third act, the whole theater gasped. Everybody was shocked. It is the first installment of the Saw franchise. Saw 1. It's just Saw. When something happens at the end of the first movie, you could just hear the whole theater go. I have never experienced anything like that in my life. It was such a shock. I never expected it, and it is so, so good. If you haven't watched the first Saw movie, what are you doing? Get it. Watch it. It's so good. And it's my favorite in the franchise, the original one. The original Saw is my favorite. I think 2 is good. 2 has a pretty cool ending too, and then they kind of get a little bit muddled. I haven't watched them all in a while, and I haven't even watched Jigsaw yet, but yeah, definitely. The first Saw, it blew everybody away when they saw it. I didn't tell anybody about the ending, and friends who went to see it, totally blown away. So yeah, Saw had to be on my list. And the next 3 I think are a little bit underrated. This one, I heard nothing about it when it was first coming out, and when I did hear things, it was kind of mediocre, but I really enjoyed this, and I've talked about it a few times on the channel. It is Marrowbone. We have four siblings who moved to America with their mother because there has been some problems, I believe, with their father in another country. I forget where they came from. Maybe Europe? I don't know where they came from. Anyway, they moved to America, and they vow no matter what happens, they are going to stay together in the same house. The mother passes away, and now it's just the 4 siblings, and they have to figure out a way to keep the house and stay together. And there's a few of the siblings are a little bit older. I think 2 of them are a little bit older. But there's lawyers coming after them, people trying to take the house away from them, and they vow to stay together no matter what. And things happen. That's all I'm going to leave you with. If you haven't seen Marrowbone, the ending of this will blow you away. The whole movie, I think the whole movie is really good. It's really well done. It was so much better than I ever expected it to be. But the ending of this is absolutely the cherry on the sundae. It is awesome. So if you haven't seen Marrowbone, highly suggest checking it out. And it is available in 4K. Not really sure that it's necessary. I would just go with the Blu-ray or even rent it if you're not sure. And these next 2, I think these 2 are criminally underrated, and the only time I hear anyone talk about the one I'm holding in my hand right now is when they're saying that it's an awesome underrated film. It's Bill Paxton and Matthew McConaughey in Frailty. And basically what this is Matthew McConaughey plays a young man, a grown man by the name of Fenton, who walks into a police station in the beginning of the movie, and he says to the sheriff or whoever he's talking to, maybe it's an FBI person, but he walks in and he says, you're trying to find the hand of God killer. I know who he is. He's like, he was my father, and he made my brother and I, as children, help him murder people. And he goes into this elaborate story, and we flash back to his childhood, and he says that his father, who's played by the late Bill Paxton, believed that God spoke to him and told him to pick out certain people to kill. People that were not virtuous, people that were hurting other people, people that were criminals. You get the gist. Anyway, Matthew McConaughey goes on to tell this whole story, which we see through flashbacks, and some people kind of consider this a thriller. I think it has enough horror elements that it's a straight up horror film. It doesn't have a lot of gore, but it's definitely got a lot of anxiety inducing sequences, a lot of tension, a lot of atmosphere. Awesome, awesome story, and it's a really great story without the ending, but the ending to it just makes the whole thing totally great. And Frailty, criminally underrated, so definitely check that one out. And this next one, I never hear anyone talk about this one. It's not from that long ago. I think it's 2003. That doesn't feel long ago for me, but it may for some of you. John Cusack, Ray Liotta, and Amanda Peet in Identity, The Secret Lies Within. We have 10 strangers who end up in a motel on a stormy night. They're all stuck there. They don't know why they've all shown up there. they start to find out that they all have the same birthday, and they start to get picked off one by one. So that's kind of what's going on, and they're trying to figure out who's trying to kill them, why, and why they're all there. That's what I'm going to tell you. The ending of this is brilliant. That's all I'm going to say. Watch it, get it, rent it, do whatever you need to do, but definitely give Identity a chance. And if you've seen any of these films, let me know in the comments without spoilers. No spoilers. Don't be that person. Let me know without spoilers what you thought of these endings. Or if you have your own favorite films with great endings, tell me in the comments. And again, no spoilers. So Identity, definitely check that one out. And this one, I just watched about maybe a year ago for the first time. It's called The Boy. A young woman takes a job as a nanny, and she is sent and she's told she's going to watch an 8-year-old boy for this couple. So she goes and she meets the couple. They introduce her to the boy. It is a doll. And here he is. You can see him sitting at the table. And what they do is they have this doll and they dress him, and he has his room, and they talk to him, and they sing to him, and they feed him, and they read to him, and they bathe him. And it is to compensate for the loss, the 20-year loss of their son. They lost their son 20 years ago, so they've been living with this doll to compensate for that. And the story is totally wacky. It's crazy. It's like nothing you've ever seen, but the ending is so good and so perfect. I can't recommend it enough. I can't say any more about it because I don't want to ruin it if you haven't seen it. The Boy, definitely check it out. And this next one, I rewatched the other night because I had it out for this video, and I showed it to a friend who hadn't seen it, and I'm like, you have to see this movie. It's called Orphan. There's Something Wrong with Esther. Look at Esther. What a freak. So there's Esther. So we have this couple. They have 2 children. They tried to have a 3rd child, and the baby was stillborn. And now that they've had time to heal, they decide they want to adopt, but they want to adopt a child who's maybe a little older, like 8, 9, 10 years old. And I think Esther's about 9 years old. And they go to a place, there's nuns that run an orphanage. They meet with the nuns, they meet with the kids, and they pick Esther. And when Esther comes home, weird things start happening. So they start investigating her past to see how she did with her last family, or how she was. They say she came from an orphanage in Russia. So they're trying to track down her history, her family history, maybe to see if there were any disciplinary problems, behavioral problems, anything that she's been diagnosed with. But the ending of this is awesome. It's crazy. It's like nothing I ever saw before. I saw this in the theaters for the first time. I was actually babysitting my friend's kids, and I took them to see this movie, and they loved it. They were old enough, but we all loved it. It's such a good ending. And my friend who I watched this with the other night loved it as well. So if you haven't seen Orphan, definitely check it out. It's a good one. And this is another one. I've talked about this one before. This is a gritty, grimy, gross, atmospheric movie, but it is so good. And another one that I think is a little bit underrated. It's a film by Jennifer Lynch. It's called Chained. And it stars Vincent D'Onofrio. He plays a cab driver, and he picks up a fare in the beginning. It's a mother with her young son. He pretty much right in the first 5 minutes of the film kills the mother, and he keeps the boy. And I'm trying to see, no, nothing on the back really shows it, but he keeps him basically a prisoner for years and years in the house, and he keeps him chained to like a cot, and it's filthy, it's dirty. He makes him cook for him, he makes him clean for him, he makes him wait on him, he makes him do horrible things. It is just a really gritty, grimy, disgusting film, but so good. And this kid is just living as his prisoner. He's kept as his prisoner. I think you can kind of get a little bit off the back there. But Vincent D'Onofrio just does such a good job at playing this creepy guy who's holding this young man for who knows why. And now he's a teenager. And the ending of it, I never saw it coming. And it's just so good. Everything that happens in the 3rd act is so good. The whole movie is actually good, but it definitely has that grimy ick factor to it. But Chained is such a good movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Give it a look, give it a buy, give it a rent, but definitely see it. And this one I have talked about in the past, and I'm sure a lot of you have already seen it, but it had to make my list because I think it has a great third act, it has a great ending, and it has one of the most badass final girls I've ever seen in a movie. It's Youre Next. And we have a family that gets together at a, like, I guess a vacation home, like a country home of their parents, and it's to celebrate an anniversary of their parents. And when they sit down to dinner, someone starts picking them off through the windows. They start shooting at them and different types of things, arrows, whatever. They start picking them off. So they're trying to survive and figure out what the heck is going on and why. And these are the masks they have on. Look at that. Talk about creepy. But if you haven't seen Youre Next, the third act is amazing, and like I said, one of the most amazing, badass final girls you'll ever see in a movie. So if you haven't seen Youre Next, put it on your list, check it out. It's a really, really good one. And this last one has traumatized viewers for decades. This film is from 1983. It's everything a cheesy 80s slasher film should be. It is called Sleepaway Camp. And if you haven't seen Sleepaway Camp, I've said it before, I'll say it again, what are you doing? Definitely check this one out, if for nothing else, for the ending, because this ending, like I said, has traumatized people for decades, and it will continue to traumatize people. We have young Angela, who is involved in a boating accident in the beginning of the film and winds up having to go live with her aunt and her young cousin. And the aunt decides that her and the cousin's a little boy, and she decides that she's going to send her son and Angela to summer camp. And Angela's very shy, and the kids make fun of her. And what ends up happening is people start getting killed at the sleepaway camp. And of course, they're all terrified. There's all kinds of weird kills, and there's the bad 80s hair and the bad outfits and all kinds of things. And they do such a good job with this movie. It's just so cheesy and campy and good, and it's not trying to be Friday the 13th, but it's like right in there. Anything with like camping in the woods, I'm in. But so we have these campers and counselors and people being picked off at the camp. So they're trying to figure out, you know, how to keep everybody safe. And all I can say is, like I said, this ending, traumatic. You will not believe the ending of this. And if you haven't seen it, you have to see it. See it today. Sleepaway Camp. And this is my favorite one in the franchise, the first one. You can't beat it. You just can't because of that ending. So that's my final pick for my top 10. So those are my top 10 films with awesome endings or awesome third acts. So like I said, let me know in the comments what yours are. If you've seen any of these, let me know without spoilers what you thought of them. And I want to thank you guys as always for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Leave me some comments, suggestions, recommendations. Hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you'll know when I upload. I know some people told me they weren't getting their notifications, so I don't know if something's changed in it or what, but hit the bell. So I'm going to be back real soon. I have a cool video planned for you in a day or so I'm going to be back with that. But I am going to go enjoy my Sunday. I hope you do the same. So for today, that's a wrap.